Well, hello. Today I would like to go through these sets of images that are made and posted on LinkedIn. I tried to animate some of them and I stumbled into a problem that I had before but did not know how to fix it. And so I would like to take you through the process of figuring out how to solve this issue, and I hope that it will be helpful and valuable for you. So first of all, let's take a look at the images. They have a current theme, which is underwater, with people submerged by water, but not all of them. And the idea was to explore different directions. As I had mentioned in my post, this cannot work as a series because they have some current theme, but they're not tied stylistically. It could work for a fashion editorial, for example, but you would need at least one or two or three that have like sort of a narrative built into it to go from one frame to the next, to be able to to make a story. But let's take a look at this one, for example. We can see that she's underwater, but the part submerged is not being affected by the physics. Also, when you are underwater, the first thing that you do is you close your eyes because of the contact, obviously, of the water. It's not very a pleasant experience. Here, it's a little bit of the same approach, except that it's a close-up. And what's interesting about this one is that although she looks like we're facing the subject, but if you look at the water, it looks like it's taken at a low angle. So that's an interesting part. And also, as the first picture, it doesn't seem to be affected by so much by the physics, except by the refractions of the light and the shimmering on her face, which it's also the subject of this video, so I will get back to this. Another thing as well about this image is that it has a grayscale sepia tone, and so you might want to think about the end result and the narrative, the story that you want to tell, if it was this process of using sepia tone is a process that was used in photography in the late 1800s and beginning of the 1900s. Right after black and white photography was adopted, or created, or invented, they figured out that placing the photograph in a solution, a special solution, you had some kind of chemical reaction that converted particles. So I'm not going to go through in details, but basically it made the image into this kind of sepia, sort of light brown, sort of brownish tone. And also it had the function, obviously, and it was to avoid fading in pictures over time. So it increased its longevity and also protected the image from degradation. So if you wanted to place your subject in the late 1800s, you could, for example, use that kind of style of imagery. This is an interesting image. I really like this one because it, in terms of composition, the subject is not looking at the camera, it's looking at its own reflection, and the outfit that she's supposed to be wearing is actually the liquid, and she's looking at her own reflection. And also you have some leading lines here, like this, that points towards the subject. So that's an interesting image, I think. It hasn't got so much depth of field. The background is almost blending with the subject. This one is interesting also because it has some graphical element that ties the subject with the red here, and that has some kind of wavy pattern in the back, which is nice. It has some shimmering on her face, although she's not underwater, and I will get back to this when it comes to refraction, that it's tied to physics. We can see that her skin is not dry because the light, and we can see the sheen here, and also on her lips. She's looking right at the camera with the eyes open. So one wonders if she's underwater. Obviously she's not, but there are certain aspects visually that remind you of a connection with somehow the water element. This one I really like as well. It's pretty simple. It's just part of her body is covered up to the neck, and despite the fact that she's not underwater completely, her eyes are closed. So one thing also overall, when making images, is to think in terms of expectations and what the viewer has in terms of expectations. Because if we take this image, for example, it's not every day that you're underwater, but at least once in your lifetime you may have seen this type of image. And so there is nothing new about it, or perhaps exciting, or something that would make you look at that image twice. You might appreciate it as it is. It may serve a purpose in some cases, but no more than that. I would eliminate this image from the series. And the same goes for this one. They're like pretty similar, except that this one has a lot more refractions, motion, applied in a different way than this one. So these two I would eliminate. Let's look at this one. This one would be the subject of the video shortly. So what's interesting about this one is obviously the shimmering due to refraction, and yet she's not underwater, and yet her eyes are closed, and she has some makeup features as well. This one is also one that I like because it's very graphical, with makeup features, and part of her face is submerged, part is out of the water. And also, it is not straight, it's going at an angle. And it is something that you can capture only in photography, because in real life, a body of water will never behave like this, or be static all the time like this, unless it's designed specifically to be that way. But I like the composition, split composition with sort of almost like white and black, and also that it's split almost in the middle, but at an angle. This one has some shimmering going on, some very graphic details here. She's not underwater, but her hair has a lot of like, it's almost like jelly-like texture. And her eyes are closed. We don't see that much distortion due to a body underwater, except in this area. This one is also very graphic. It's more like of a close-up, and there are some makeup elements here that I find interesting, like this one, and that leads to that part of the neck, which seem to be like some kind of water envelope somehow. Also, in terms of makeup, she has some graphic elements there, and when applying certain type of forms in makeup, you can think of a triangle as providing leading lines. For example, it can point, these 2 points are pointing like downwards, but you can look at the triangle pointing this way, and it's the same for that one. So your eyes sort of look at the form and naturally converge towards a same point here, or that point going towards the bottom. That make you look naturally to the different parts of the image. And she has some skin that's still obviously wet, and we can see the sheen on her skin, and part of her lips also highlighted. This one is bubbly, and it almost look at, she's got a vertical film of like some kind of jelly texture, and she's moving forward, her face is moving forward, and so that part of the face is not wet, but on the sides it is still in the sort of jelly part in the back, and her eyes are open with some shimmering going on here and here. This one is graphic due to the background. It framed the subject. In some paintings during the Renaissance as well, religious paintings, you used to have these kind of, I don't know how they called, like some kind of, it's almost like an aura, sort of a religious figure. And looking at her clothes, she looks like she's just been in the water, all dressed up, and then she just came out of it. And we shot her here. And you also have some graphical elements here that tie her to the background with the blue and the pink, although that this is red. And these we already discussed. So now let's go over to Figma, to Midjourney. And I animated this one. And what you can do is pose it, obviously. And you can see the shimmering here due to the refraction and the motion going on underwater. What you can do is copy this as a frame, copy current frame, if you want to analyze it. And also you may want to upscale it as a, even though it's a video, you can upscale it as an image and choose the exact same frame. And as I was doing this with this video, I was looking at that image and I decided to animate it. And that's when I stumbled into a problem. So I'm going to show you what the problem was. So first of all, in Midjourney, when you have an image and you want to animate it, you've got three ways to do it. You can click those automatic presets here. Low motion, meaning the subject in the video will move at a low pace. And then for high motion, then there will be a lot more motion going on, like faster. But what you can also do is take this image and animate it manually. And here you can just send it as without a prompt. You can make it a loop. You can also add an ending frame, but we're not going to be doing that. So first, we send it as a low motion and without the prompt. And I'm going to show you what the result was. So I'm going to pause right there. And we're going to go back. Oh, we can watch until the end. We can watch the next one, which has like a similar, you can see the motion going on with the shimmering here. And they are pretty similar. We did not give much instructions, in fact, 0. So the AI has full control over what's happening in terms of motion. And then the last one, she opened her eyes. You got the shimmering here, it's a really nice effect. But that is the problem here. So let's go and look at the actual image. When you have a subject in a frame, in this case, the portrait of a woman, you have some features that the AI recognize as being a person, right? So you have the eyes, you have the lips, you have the hair, the nose, the eyebrows, the ears, all facial features. And the AI knows that as the subject moves within the frame, these are features, these constants, permanent features, they will not disappear. So meaning if she turns around and then turns back, she will still have two eyes. So this is going to sound perhaps strange to you, but when filming with a camera, this is obvious. But AI does not interpret it in the same way a camera does. And so you need to feed the AI some information so that it recognizes what is a constant, what is a variable, what is temporary feature, and what is a permanent feature. So what do we have here? We talked about all the anatomical, also the anatomy of a face, and these are not going to be disappearing, as I said. But we have the lips here, we know they're permanent, but the makeup is also permanent, but at the same time it's temporary. So if you wanted, you could make the makeup change color or disappear entirely when she turns around. It's the same for these two dots here. So the arrows in greens are the things that are pointing to things that can change. As the subject moves around, it has to adapt and not be considered as makeup. And that is a problem I've had here, is that instead of the fluid moving due to gravity, it stayed put, and that's an issue. So let's look at what's happening here. And I think this is really interesting. This is really interesting because whenever you stumble into a problem, you try to understand it and you want to dig deeper and understand some basic, also have a basic understanding of some natural phenomenon, because we grow up with these phenomenon all around us, but we don't always question them. So this is a ray of light hitting a glass, and we can see that it's not going straight this way. And why? Because of a phenomenon called refraction. Because light wave travels, and when it hits another body, like in this case, it's a very concrete example, and we've all seen that. We've got air, and then we've got water, and then we have an object that is partly in the air sphere or part, and then we have the other half in the body of water. And water is denser than air. So what happens is that as light travels really fast and hits the water, the light wave bends, and that's why you get this shift, right? And that's interesting visually. This is another angle. And you have to take into account the angle. So here we're sitting in front and we're looking at the glass. So there's not much motion going on. There is no bubble. The pen stands still. And we can then look at, this is another example with the Golden Bridge and some droplets. It's really interesting. We can go back to our image here. I have it down there. Yeah. And think why this has happened, this has occurred. And it's obviously because in the starting frame, you had all of these droplets, which were then interpreted by AI as static instead of being subject to gravity. And so they should be like either dropping, but not looking like they do. And so I've marked all of them here. You can see them. And I used Nano Banana to remove those parts. So when the subject moves around within the frame, you will not have this sort of not very attractive scene. And besides, this kind of low angle is not very nice in photography. So what happened first is that when I used Nano Banana to edit, it removed not just the droplets, but all of the shimmering going on here, all that effect. So I had to bring it back here to just remove that. And now I'm going to show you what the effect was. So first I started the animation with this time a prompt where the subject is tilting her head forward and slightly to the side. So instead of like giving full control to the AI, we will not have that kind of, perhaps here a little bit. Let's look at it. So what we see here, we don't have these sort of very ugly droplets that look like paste. We can see the shimmering going on here, and I find it a bit too fast, but we can always slow it down in post. What's interesting this time around is that this type of effect you would normally see when you're underwater, and obviously she's not underwater. That's what makes it interesting. We can look at the other variants. These are just like 5 seconds clips. And here, that would be okay up to that point. There you would have to cut it because I don't find the end of the video very convincing in terms of water fluid like this. Okay, and the reason why you get these droplets here is because in the prompt we had some mention of water, and this is why you get first the shimmering that looked like it's a projection, but then become more has more volume and becomes like droplets. So what I did next is to remove any mention of water. So let's look at the result. We can see that even the effects here are a little bit more subtle, and they move when she moves, okay, in a subtle way. And it's not permanent, so the effect is not on part of her face, and when she moves her face, it follows through, it moves as well. It never stays in the same place. So you have like different variants, and you can choose which one works better for you. Here we can see that it's not moving, and I don't like that. But you have some sort of layer that is moving. So that's not good. This one I will not use it. And now let's use again one that has no prompt and see, as it's no prompt, but we have removed all the things, the droplets here. So she's doing a little bit of what she was doing before, you know, like tilting her head up. Nicer this way. But if you look at the pattern here, the shimmering, it's like almost treated as makeup. So you get to decide when you want to give the AI full control and when you want to take over and be more specific about what you want. And you'll get some surprises, some good surprises, some bad surprises, but in the end, you may come across an effect that you hadn't thought about. So if we go back to the one I liked here, I think this is something, if we come back to the idea of the viewer looking at the image or a movie, an animation like this, and what does the viewer has in terms of expectations, and you want to go perhaps against this and make it more surreal, because this is something that this kind of effect I would expect to see underwater, not over water. I have found an example of an image like a police mugshot, and you have some typical markings on the image, left, right, top and bottom, but also in the center. And when you animate it, you obviously don't want those in the center to move with the face. So let's see what happened. So as predicted, it treated that layer as some kind of facial permanent feature like makeup. And I think perhaps the intent at first was not to have it, but when you look at it, it actually is interesting because it goes against our perception of all the elements that appear on an image that are not the subject, which is those type markings here. So let's look at another example, this one. We can see that the grid is moving or is being used as a facial feature. We can see it here, and I think this is really interesting. Yeah, I really like those. But this is a common pattern, and so you need to decide when you want to take over and rectify. Let's look at this one. We can see that it's moving with the head when it's not supposed to. It could be in fact interesting. So I just wanted to show you some other examples. So I think we're done with this tutorial. I hope this was valuable. This is part of a course that I'm building. Obviously, it will not be exactly that, but there will be many other aspects from start to finish. So it will be a mid-journey course coming soon in 2026. That's for the like the practice part, sort of very hands-on part of handling the working with the AI images. But I also have another type of course, which is actually a workshop to help communication departments within a company to help them embrace AI workflows into their current workflow. And that is also coming in 2026. So I will put a link in the description of the post on LinkedIn. And if you like, and if you're interested or curious, you can always subscribe to the mailing list. And so I will let you know when these workshops and courses are out. I hope this was helpful, and I wish you a very nice day. Bye bye.